So, what I'm going to do is share the screen here. Y'all should all now see creating service projects, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so this is what we're going to cover. And I think from last night's experience, I felt like we got bogged down. I'm going to try and speed the pace up a little. And here's my plan. We've got about 45 minutes. I want to spend maybe 4 or 5 minutes just talking about the introduction. Then we're going to have this first question where we're going to talk about service projects. And item 2 is develop a business plan for a service project. Now, this is where typically we break up into separate groups. And I actually want to experiment with tonight's setup, and I'm gonna break this up into 2 groups. We're gonna go off and do 2 short projects and get back together. So we're gonna experiment a little with technology. And then if you look at the rest of the outline for this section, much of it is questions about what you did as groups. So probably let's get started. Creating service projects. It says, I am a vital part of worldwide service organization meeting needs in communities. Session goals, we're going to learn to identify, plan, organize, and implement a service project, develop a business plan for your service project, and learn how to evaluate the success. And this, we've all done service projects, so a lot of this is really about sharing how we do it and how we work together. I do want to talk about the materials, just like Bruce mentioned. These materials with the squares, diamonds beside them, are basically materials that are part of this lesson. The others are external materials. And I want to particularly talk about this one, Communities in Action. It's a little bit bigger document, not something we're going to look at tonight. But as you go ahead with your projects, take a look at that. It's really a good overall guide. It gives you a lot of things to think about when you implement a new project, particularly if you're struggling with the project. The second one, Community Assessment Tools, isn't interesting. It has some approaches to try to assess what your community needs are. And it depends on how you approach the initiation of a project. This is particularly suitable in the larger global grants. And the other documents add a little more. This is a fairly short document, somewhat redundant material. The 6 areas of focus are particularly important if you are going to go after a global grant, because those have to follow the 6 areas of focus. And certainly a club president manual includes some information on service projects. So we're going to talk about these items in section 1. To make it simple, what I'm going to do is I've actually put those into a document, and we're going to answer those. So does everybody see the page that starts with how do you start?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So these are all the subparts of that question 1. So when you start a project, how do you start it? And the way I'm going to do this is, as you guys talk, I'm going to be the recorder and recording it on our electronic whiteboard here. So how do you guys get started with a project?
Got to identify the need.
Identify the need, right. And how do you do that?
By getting feedback from your members or people in the community.
Okay, so feedback, basically ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Feedback from the club. I heard the community in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does anybody do anything more formal? I'm not hearing a yes, so I'm going to jump quickly to this. Some clubs, one of them last night was talking about actually doing a very formal survey and review of a lot of ideas. Uh, so it can range anywhere from ideas people you're associated with have a cool idea to a very, very formal process. And here's where I'm going to point you to that second external document. It has some ideas on doing that very formal process. But we're going to keep going right now. So what are the other steps we're going to do to develop a project? How do we start, and then what are our steps in proceeding with the project?
I'm not sure that I understand, Jesse, what you're asking.
Well, what are key things you need to make sure of to have a successful project? You're going to be asking yourselves many questions about that
We've
project.
got to make sure that we have the talents to accomplish it. Then we've got to look to see if we've got the money, the resources, and if not, where do we reach to get those resources?
Okay.
And I guess the talents to accomplish it is not only the planning, but the actual carrying it out. It's one thing to plan. I mean, I can plan, for example, building something, but I certainly may not be able to cut the lumber and hammer the nails.
Okay. And do those talents all come from your club?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
We may have to reach out. What do we have in our club? What internally, and what do we need externally?
Do we reach outside the club?
So I think we have to consider all those things before we can consider, is this a project that we can do, that we can do on?
Any other ideas of things that you need to consider? Can someone give me an example of maybe their current major project you're doing?
In the Mesilla Valley Club, it's a fundraiser and a project at the same time, in my mind. And that is, we have a Rotary Youth Talent Show. And so we invite students. So we're giving them something. It's not necessarily money, but it's still a project where we're providing them with a stage.
Okay.
And we definitely had to go outside the club to get the talent to accomplish it.
So where do you go to get the talent?
We're lucky enough to be in a university community, and so we engaged people from the university, a professor of dance, professors of music, and things like that, to come in and work with the students. And so when the students sign up to perform for the prize money, they also get training in how to have stage presence and to make their performance better.
Okay, so that's great. You're connecting with the university to help them develop their talent. You also talked about prize money. Where's the prize money coming from?
Well, we did fundraising. We got people to support us. We also sold tickets, and in the theater that we held it in, we nearly filled the theater with tickets that we sold just out in the community.
So tickets, sponsorships, And
Sponsorships. That's what I was really kind of
Right.
looking for.
and then the entry fees, very minimal though they were, but we still, require an entry fee. And if it's not something that's going to eliminate a student, because we will have scholarships for those available for the entry fees, but that is a source of money.
Okay. Anybody else with a project that you want to discuss?
Jesse, this is Jeff. Can I interrupt just for a second?
Sure.
Deborah is having some computer issues, and over the last few minutes, she's able to hear but cannot participate with her audio at this point. So hopefully that'll get fixed. So she's hearing but is not able to interact.
Okay. Well, let me ask Deborah. Can you hear me? So she may not even be hearing me at this point.
She sent me a chat. She can hear, but she's not able to vocally participate.
Okay. So
right now.
I may change the next section of the activity here. But we'll give that a few minutes. Okay. So we're talking about needs. We're looking at planning. We're talking about people. So we're talking about people resources. We're talking about money resources. We're talking about location and partnerships. So there's several things there we have to look at and consider if we're going to have a successful project. How about the second question, or the next question? I think it's technically the third in the handout. It says, establish the procedure to identify a need in a community. Now, I know you said you just ask people, but does it go farther than that? Are there people you ask? Do you do any surveying? I mean, once you have an idea, how do you decide if you've got a valid project? I guess, Jim and Len, you can hear me, right?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you. I'm just...
And Silver City, you're still online, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
It's just Deborah.
I was just thinking, I don't know that we have a formal procedure to identify a need. We have some signature projects we do that benefit like other nonprofits and things like that, but we don't necessarily have a formal procedure to identify a need. We just basically talk about it between the club and maybe having different programs, but we don't have a formal procedure.
Okay. And you have discussions with other organizations?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
It sounds like you have discussions, particularly with other organizations that you partner with.
Well, we partner, like, for example, with the Kiwanis Club on a few projects. I think it's important not to be exclusive when you're a service organization, because I think it's more empowering to be involved. You broaden your focus.
Right.
And so other times we do just singular things ourselves, but that's just one avenue.
Okay. Elaine, were you trying to say something there too?
What I was going to say, Jesse, is that what we do once we have raised the funds for projects, we go to several not-for-profit organizations and ask them, do they have a need that specifically, not just we need money, but is there a need that they have within that organization, and tell us about it. And then we use the funds that we have raised to give grants to the different organizations.
Okay, so you actually do talk to other nonprofits and evaluate them for their relative merits.
Yes.
Okay. I'm curious, does anybody do an RFP process?
I just have a question for you, Jesse. Are you trying to get at, are you actually doing a project that is going to have a real good purpose versus do one for the sake of doing a project?
Well, and there are a couple of questions hidden in this, I think. One is, how are you identifying that you've got a project? But another question is, how formal is it? Kind of curious thing that came out of last night's discussion is one of the clubs said, well, they actually have a formal RFP process, and they announce it to the community that that's what they do.
We have that for the auction.
Which I was a little surprised at, because at least my club, it's very informal. It's much like Silver City was saying. We just talk about things. We know people in the community. We know things that are
I
needed.
would say that the Mesilla Valley's process is very informal.
Informal.
Very informal. So it sounds like almost everybody here is informal. So that's talking about what are the needs? Are they valid? What are issues of feasibility? I mean, does that come into your discussions? How feasible is it?
Well, I think the feasibility portion really comes in with right after you identify the need, because you have to that kind of correlates with in the beginning, because you would hate to get further down in the project and find out that for some reason you didn't do your homework and it's not feasible. So I think that has to happen really quickly.
So what are the key things you're looking at to identify if something's feasible?
Well, one thing I think, and there's several, but one is we have to make sure that what we're going to be involved in embodies the values of Rotary.
Okay. Okay.
And I think
the question is about feasibility and advisability. Is it something we think is good? Does this relate at all to the mission of our club or the vision of our club?
I think it definitely should relate to what the vision of your club is, and as well as the mission. For example, one of the vision for our club is to become one of the most outstanding clubs in the community for serving the youth. And one of the things that we are planning to do, part of our goal for this year, is to establish an Interact Club. That's pretty specific.
It is specific. How many, let's see, I guess we have online, we really only have 2 clubs represented. We have Mesilla Valley and Silver City. Silver City, do you have a vision or mission that you could clearly state?
Well, we do have a mission, but to clearly articulate it, help me out here, guys.
Peter? No,
I can't, I'm sorry.
Basically, I mean, we want to be involved with the youth and not just the youth, but involved with people to foster, service projects and to foster community. As I mentioned at the previous session, we have an exchange doing weekly things with the youth, but we're also, one of our signature projects we're trying to get going is helping senior citizens. So we want to embody all avenues of people in our community.
Okay. So you have it, maybe it's not formalized. Actually, the group last night, it was interesting. Almost all the clubs said their club had a vision, but nobody could state it.
Well, we're kind of in the middle of finalizing our club's strategic plan. And once we get that done, we'll have it pretty much concrete, but that's probably not till next week.
But do you think, having done that with a clear vision and mission statement, will that help you select your projects?
I think it'll help us select our projects, and it'll also help us have more collective buy-in from the entire club when everyone truly understands the vision and the mission.
Yes. I'm going to jump down to the next question. I think we've got good ideas on that. Financing. There's different ways we can finance a project, right? We're just going to list some ideas here, and then we're going to move on. How do we finance a project? I think we talked about it earlier. We talked about fundraising, sponsorships,
Ticket sales.
district grants.
What?
District grants.
District grants, yes.
Grants.
That's a key one I wanted to get to. Does everybody make use of district grants for their projects?
No,
No.
not as much as we should.
So this is something you need to think about. Global grants can be challenging to get through, but a district grant does not have the same requirements. Those 6 areas of service that we want for global grants, are those required for a district grant? I'm sorry, Elaine, did you say?
I think isn't it referred to now as community grants?
Right. Let's see. Yeah, technically, the district grant is a grant from the foundation to the district, and the district gives them out, and I think we call those community grants.
Community and global.
Right. Yeah, so the district is to the district, which is divided up as community grants, and global are very different. Global require you to meet those 6 criteria, but to get one of our community grants from our district, you don't have to have anything nearly that difficult. And so I guess my big suggestion here is if you are not taking advantage of the grants that are at a community level within our district, you're missing a chance to get some funding for your projects. I'm going to jump down to that next topic, sustainability. Do y'all consider sustainability when planning a project?
We should, but I don't think that we have as much.
Okay, so
The new big project that we're looking at for this year, as I mentioned, is an Interact Club.
yes,
And we certainly need sustainability. We are looking at that.
that is a great example. How do y'all have any sense of how you get sustainability in an Interact Club? Any experience? Yes, Bruce.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you the experience that our club had, which is an example of how not to do it. where we fell down. But the most important thing for sustainability is you need a faculty advisor, because the kids are going to come and go. But the advisor, you have a much better chance of that person hanging around. That's your point of contact. That's the person that gives continuity of what's going on. Our particular club, the Del Sol Club, we had we actually have in place an Interact Club with Valley High School, but it's only active when we have a Rotary Exchange student there, which we haven't had in about 10 years. Because we've been in different school districts, depending on where the sponsors are going to be.
Right.
So, the thing is, the kids come and go, so you've got to have somebody on the faculty there that can provide the sustainability.
And that is a terrific example. We've seen it down here. And particularly the challenge is if you don't have that advisor and all your kids are seniors and they graduate, who's going to carry the project through? So that's a terrific example. When we're looking at projects, another thing we need to look at, or we may want to, risk. Do y'all consider risk as a part of your evaluation of projects?
I can't think of an example where we have.
Do you think it ever could come into play?
Right. What kind of things are you thinking of here?
I'll give you an example that came from last night's discussion. One of the Albuquerque clubs, I guess the main club, they had a bicycle race. Do you think there's any issue of risk there?
Oh, absolutely. And I can see with exchange students, obviously you've got to have insurance coverage and that situation. If you're building a physical structure or you've got people out doing some physical work, I can see where there could be a risk.
Yes, structures are a good example. I'll give you another project. We have a 4th of July parade. Do you think we evaluate risk?
Yeah.
Actually, it's a concern of ours. We make sure we have insurance because parades can be dangerous.
Jesse, one of the things that we do probably twice a year is we sponsor a median beautification, and we go out once or twice a year and clean the median. And really, there's a risk, but I don't know. Given it a lot of consideration.
So that's an interesting question. So I agree with you. You probably have a potential aspect of risk there, but it sounds like you don't have anything that addresses that.
Jesse, this is Jeff.
Yes.
I'm going to ask a weird question. While you are taking notes and engaging in discussion, are you seeing that you're receiving chats from Deborah?
Actually, no, I do not.
Okay, so because that's the only way she can communicate, so I'm asking her to send chats to me, and I will channel her to you.
Okay. Channeling. I didn't think that's something we were going to do on a road. So this topic of risk is actually potentially a very important one for all of us to think about. So we talked about risks. So here we talk about bicycle as bodily injury, same with structures, same with cleaning the median. Are there other risks involved in any of these projects?
What about risk of not making the basic income that you need on a fundraising project?
Exactly. So these are all things we need to be thinking about as we develop a service project.
And I would say that financial risk is certainly one that we do consider.
Yes. So I was gonna have us break into two groups, but I think given Kenny's challenge and also Deborah's challenge, kind of what I was hoping is we'd have enough with two groups where I could break it into two. We'll just kind of work this out together, but I'd like you to look at your handout, SP2. Everybody has the handout, right?
Yes.
And look at the item A. Let me get down to it. It's a service project. Everybody read that and talk about what's the approach we're going to use. The project here is to develop a business plan. Well, we're not going to develop a detailed business plan, but we're going to develop a plan of action. What are things we want to do? So we're just going to work through this. I think, Jeff, what do we have, about 10, 15 more minutes?
10.
Okay. In a normal Rio Grande Academy session, we break people up and we just sit in corners and do this. Actually, Deborah's back online. You hear us okay? Not sure. So I think given the short time and the fact that we're having communication problems, we're just going to do this all together. So as y'all read that through that, let's just start making comments on issues and things that are going to affect how we're going to start this.
So Jesse, I have a thought.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about this yesterday when we were going through this, but I've seen a number of business plans that did not have embedded in it a financial management plan.
Okay.
How is the money going to be not just raised, but how is it going to be managed? Who's going to manage it? How's it going to be spent? So some financial management related specifically to the project. And I did get a text from Deborah to add to that. She says startup funding as well as sustainability funding, and solicit ideas from local teens and teen groups as to what their needs might be.
Good ideas. Right. So really this whole thing would be soliciting input from teens. Because on the surface, we really don't necessarily know what their hot buttons would be, what would bring them together, right? And that comment about needing to identify startup funding and identify sustainability funding is big, because here we're talking about potentially creating facilities, but a need to maintain the facilities. How about manpower? What kind of manpower are you looking at?
Jesse, I do have another chat from Deborah, but it's not about manpower.
Okay, sure.
Assess risks of the use of the vacant land versus the use of the building. This includes any costs of renovation, cleanup, and insurability.
Cleanup, insurability. There was a third one in there.
Renovation. And then a follow-up. What are the thoughts of the community in general? If the response from the community is positive, can community members be engaged to help with the project?
Right. So can you get other groups involved? Good point. This is interesting coming through text message. Deborah, keep typing there. Can you hear me? Nod. But clearly she's hearing enough to where she can type and respond. So
long-term sustainability, who will pay to sustain the project? Or how will the project be sustained? Yep.
Good point. Good point.
I think back to what we've talked about before, or I would be looking at the teams that would be working together long term. You know, the city or another organization, whether it be Kiwanis or it could be a not-for-profit, identifying who's going to do what for that long-term sustainability.
What are the advantages of partnering? Do we all partner on our projects?
Well,
You all do?
you can do a set of skills that you may not have in your club.
That's right.
Right.
As I look at this Project A, one of the things that pops into my mind is one of your partners might be somebody like Habitat for Humanity, who has a real skill in the construction thing and could come and fix that building.
That's right. Because if we're talking a building or we're talking any kind of a sports field, we are probably talking about construction. It's very likely beyond the scope of the Rotarians in our club. It may fit in the scope of someone's business or in the scope of some other nonprofit. So I think we've covered some of the key things that are brought out in this section about identifying ideas from other sources, other organizations, surveying people to see what they think, evaluation of the need, fit with your club, fit with your vision. Evaluating other partners or contacting the partners for funding, for volunteers, for manpower. We've talked about needing volunteers. How about leadership?
Well, speaking of leadership, I got another text from Deborah.
Okay.
It says, going back to the original meeting with the mayor, should the Rotary Club actually take the lead and utilize either the lot or the building, or should they agree to be a partner at some level? So maybe there's an opportunity for another group that may be in a better position to take the lead than the club.
Yes. Or could there be a transition?
Mm-hmm.
That's the solution to the sustainability. Maybe Rotary starts it, turns it over.
Exactly.
Because who would be a likely organization to carry on this kind of activity?
Well, the city.
A city? Other organizations?
Boys and Girls Club,
Yes, exactly.
Big Brothers, Big Sisters might.
So there's a variety of people we deal with on partnering. We also talked about matching. We really haven't talked about the importance of a budget. Well, you did talk about financial, but we have to have a budget for every project. Does everybody have a budget for all of their projects? I take that as a yes or as a no?
Sure, yeah, you need a budget. I also see this project as being divided up into several pieces. One is the initiation and the first go-round. Then there's the sustainability, but then you want some kind of a review of how it's going in about 5 years or so. And do we need to refurbish the building? Do we need to refurbish the playground or something like that?
Yes, and actually you brought out a key point that's brought out in the lessons is you want to have a review to see, is it still matching your goals? Is it matching your club's vision? Do y'all do any kind of review of your projects?
Yes.
Is that anything you
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's an autopsy at the end of the
Wow, yours are brutal projects. You have to have autopsies.
yeah, we do that, you know, break it down and what could we have done, you know, what did we absolutely do wrong? What could we have done tweaking and a little bit better and that kind of thing. And really it comes down to, is it viable to try again next year?
Yep.
Yes.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I think it was Leslie who talked about either in this session or the one previous about having, in fact, it was the previous session. She talked about how engaging members is continuous, I think was what she said. And I think with projects, you know, projects have a finite lifetime, at least from our perspective. We want them to be sustainable, but our particular involvement has a beginning, a middle, and an end. But I think in a lot of cases, we don't analyze and learn from one project that had a beginning, middle, and an end when we get into an opportunity for a new project with a beginning, middle, and an end. So I think you have the same opportunity to have that analysis and learning and growth in projects so that you're not just reinventing the wheel all the time. You know, if things are not going well, then the next time you apply for a grant or develop a plan, you do it better the next time.
Right, and actually there are many clubs that do projects that are repetitive projects.
Mm-hmm.
I believe our Anthony Club is the one that started the one trying to match up potential parent families with orphan children. I forget the name of the program, but that's one they were doing on an annual basis. Well, let's see. I think really we've kind of hit, there was one other topic I wanted to talk about. Should public relations play a significant role in these activities?
Very much so.
Yes.
And then the follow-up is, do you make that an active part of your projects?
Absolutely.
So you do. Well, that's great if you are doing it. I think many times Rotary clubs miss that. It is important, but many clubs miss doing that. Well, I think kind of come to the end of
that kind of thing.
I'm sorry, what? I need to stop the sharing, and then I can see who's talking. Oh, Jeff?
Nope.
Oh. Well, I think I've come to the end of the we're going to discuss on this. So, Jeff, I think it's time to wrap up.
It is. It is time to wrap up. So tonight we had some technical issues. That's important for us to know if we're going to continue to use this. But we do need your feedback, not just on how this session went, but if you had technology issues, we'd like to hear about those as well. If you had audio issues, video, internet problems, things like that. I did email out a link to that survey feedback form. Please fill that out. Elaine and Jim,
Yes.
Congratulations on graduating from RGA. We would sing you a graduation song, but I think it's getting kind of late.
Where's
But
the again?
between you and Jesse, we'll figure out some way to have like a little celebration at your club.
Yeah, we'll work it out.
soon.
I'll get up extra early one of these days.
Okay, Jeff.
And for the rest of you, we just greatly appreciate your participation. This is a pilot, which means things that go wrong like tonight are just as important than what went well. So we greatly appreciate it. Have a great rest of your evening, and let us know how we can make this better. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you all.
Just trying this out.
And all the rest.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.